A very warm welcome, children, and today we will continue with the lesson reproduction. And in the previous class, you had studied reproduction in plants, so we will continue with reproduction and we will study about reproduction in animals. So again, here when we talk about reproduction in animals, so we will mainly discuss reproduction in human beings, right? Now if we talk about reproduction in human beings, we see that all human beings are unisexual. Now uni means one, which also means that unisexual also means that the sexes in human beings are separate, right? So then what does it mean? Separate sexes are found, which also means that the males as well as the females are separate, right? You can easily recognize a male from a female by looking at a certain features as well, right? So in humans, the sexes are separate and so they are unisexual, which also then means that a distinct sexual dimorphism is seen, right? Sexual dimorphism again here means distinct, means as I told you just now that the males can well be differentiated from the females because of the presence of visibly different characteristic features from each other. So they are visibly different from each other, right? So how do you know that they are visibly different from each other? When you look at a male and when you look at a female, you can observe certain features which helps you identify a male from a female, right? Then it also says that the structures associated with reproduction are different in males and females. That means whatever structures are associated, means whatever organs are there associated to a male or to a female are distinct from each other. They're different from each other, right? The organs are also distinctly different from each other. They constitute the male reproductive system and the female reproductive system respectively. That means when we talk about the reproductive system in males, it is referred to as the male reproductive system, whereas if we talk about the reproductive system in females, it is referred to as the female reproductive system, right? So here we talk about the male and the female reproductive system, right? And then the male and the female reproductive system, they consist of different organs which are distinguished into primary and secondary sex organs, right? So male reproductive system consists of different organs that are distinguished. Now in males, there are organs which are referred to as the primary reproductive organs and the secondary reproductive organs. And in females also, they are primary reproductive organs and secondary reproductive organs, right? So then what do we say? That there are two types of reproductive organs, whether in males or in females. We find that there are two separate, we can say, reproductive organs. One is the primary, so one is the primary, right, and the other is the secondary, right? So the reproductive organs are differentiated into primary and secondary sexual organs, right? Now let's see what are these primary and secondary sexual organs. Now when we talk about the primary sexual organs, we say that the primary sexual organs are the main organs for sexual reproduction. That means if we talk about sexual reproduction, the organs that are actually carrying out the process of reproduction are known as the main organs for sexual reproduction, right? Whereas if we talk about the secondary reproductive organs, now here whether it is the male or the female, right, the characteristics, the differentiation is the same, right? So when we talk about the secondary reproductive organs, these are the organs that assist in sexual reproduction. Assist means, that means it does not carry out the process of reproduction, but in some way it helps those reproductive organs to carry out the process of reproduction. So assisting means helping, right? So that is one difference. Then we come to the next one. We see that the primary reproductive organs, they produce gametes and sex hormones, right? So they produce gametes and sex hormones. That means the main reproductive organs, which are also referred to as gonads, right? Now they produce gametes. You have heard about the gametes in class 8. You've studied that the gametes are the male gametes are sperm and the female gametes are ova, right? So these gametes are produced in the primary reproductive organs, as well as the sex hormones. You have heard and studied about testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, right? So these are the hormones which are the sex hormones, and they are also secreted in the reproductive organs. Now if we talk about the secondary reproductive organs, then here we see the gametes are produced by the main primary reproductive organs, but are transported from the body of the organism to the outside by the secondary reproductive organs. So again here you see that these secondary reproductive organs are helping or assisting the sexual reproduction to take place, right? So these secondary reproductive organs, they assist or they help in the transportation of gametes from the body of the organism to the outside, right? Here you see here from the body of the organism to the outside. Then we come to the third point, where we get to see the names of the primary reproductive organs. So in males, the primary reproductive organs are the testes, right? Testes in males and ovary in females, right? So a pair of ovaries are found in females. So that's the reproductive organ, the main or the primary reproductive organ or the sex organs which are found in the males as well as the females. Now attached or associated or connected to these organs, that is the testes and the ovaries, are found certain other parts which are tube-like structures, right? So now when we will study in detail, you will get to know where each of them are present. We see here the ducts, right? So when you look at this word ducts, we see vas deferens, which are found in males, vagina in females, uterus in females, right? And then there are some accessory glands also associated, which are the seminal vesicles and the prostrate glands in males. These are the secondary sex organs, right? So seminal vesicles and the prostrate glands in males, they secrete certain secretions which assist or help in the movement of the gametes, the male gametes, right? We'll go into that detail later. Okay, the fourth point here is that in the primary reproductive organs, their maturity and functioning is under gonadotropic hormone of the pituitary gland. So their functioning, their maturity, they mature at a certain age, right? The gametes and even these organs, right? They mature at a certain age and they become functional also at a certain age, right? Now at that particular age, when they become mature and they become functional, there is a hormone known as the gonadotropic hormone, which is found in the pituitary gland, right? It is secreted, not found, it is secreted by the pituitary gland, and this helps, this hormone gonadotropic hormone, it helps in the maturity and the functioning of these reproductive organs at a particular age, right? There's a particular age at which these organs, the primary reproductive organs, they become mature and functional. Now, the secondary reproductive organs, their function is controlled by sex hormones secreted by testes and ovaries, right? So that's the difference between the primary and the secondary sexual organs. So what do we learn here is that the primary reproductive organs are the gonads, that is the testes in males and ovaries in females, and the primary reproductive organs, they secrete the gametes, or the male gamete is the sperm, right, and the female gamete is the ova. So that is secreted by the gonads, right? So gonads secretes these, as well as they secrete some sex hormones, right? So this is all what the gonads do, right? They secrete the gamete, that is the sperm and the ova, and they also secrete the sex hormones, right? Now we come and we will talk about the primary and the secondary sex organs in detail. Right, so the primary sex organs, as I told you, are the gonads, and they produce gametes and secrete sex hormones. The gonad in male are the testes, this is what we talked about just now, and they produce the male gamete, that is the sperm. The male gamete produces or secretes a hormone, male hormone, that is the testosterone, right? That's the hormone secreted. Whereas in females, the gonads are the ovaries, right? They produce the gametes known as the ova, and they secrete two hormones, estrogen and progesterone, right? So these are the two hormones that are secreted by the ovaries, right? So that was the primary sex organ. And then it says here, the primary sexual characters are those characters which are present since birth. Okay, now just before this point, there's a line that the secondary sex organs, both in male and female, include genital ducts or tubes. What are these ducts? Ducts are small tube-like structures, right? Since it is genital, so it is associated or connected to the genital organs, that is the gonads. And then there are certain glands also that help in the transportation of gametes and the reproductive process, right? So when we talked about the respiratory system, etc., we studied that there are certain tube-like structures that help in the transportation, right? Then we talked about certain glands also in the digestive system, right? So then associated to the genital ducts are to the genital organs are the genital ducts also, right? So then there are certain characters which are known as the primary and the secondary sexual characters. Now what are the primary sexual characters? These are those characters which are present since birth. So when a baby is born, by looking at the organs of the baby, one can make out whether it is a boy or a girl, right? So these are the primary characters present since birth, right? Whereas secondary sexual characters, they develop at puberty. So at a certain age, puberty is achieved, right? So now you've already done this in class 8, but we'll just revise it again. What is puberty? Now when we read about puberty, we see here that the age at which the reproductive organs become functional. You must remember that the reproductive organs are non-functional till before puberty. They are there, right? The process and the development of the gametes is going on. It is there in the process, but at a certain age only it becomes functional, right? So the age at which these organs, reproductive organs, here again I'm talking about the gonads, the testes and the ovaries, right, when they become functional, right. So becoming functional means to produce the gametes and the sex hormones, right. That is becoming functional. That is the meaning of the reproductive organs to become functional. Becoming functional means now the gonads are able to produce gametes and to secrete hormones, not till before that, right. So that is at a particular age they become functional, and that age when the gonads are sexually, we can say, mature, that age is known as puberty. So the gonads, they start producing gametes and sex hormones in the boys and girls. They become sexually mature, and this stage is known as puberty. Generally, boys attain puberty at an age between 13 to 14 years, and girls a little earlier, that is 10 to 12 years. Now this is not fixed. Now for every person the puberty age may differ, maybe a year or so early, a year or so later, few months here and there, right. So this is the average age actually what has been calculated. Then at the onset of puberty, now once puberty has been attained by the individual, then what happens? In boys, puberty is induced by secretion of the hormone testosterone, right. So as we had discussed earlier also, we had said that puberty, at the time of puberty, what happens? The gametes are formed, right, produced, and secretion of the sex hormones. So in boys at puberty, the secretion of the hormone testosterone takes place, right, from the testes, of course. The hormone brings about development. Now as we said just now, we were talking about the secondary sexual characters, right. We are talking about the secondary sexual characters. We've already discussed the primary sexual characters. So you must have undergone this stage of puberty, and some of you must be in the process of this stage. At this stage, what happens is that there are certain new characteristics that develop in the body, right. Now how do these new things, it is quite common, it goes with everyone. So now how are these new characteristics being developed in the individual, right. It is different. Some of them are common in boys and girls, and some of them are different, right. So whatever it is at this stage of puberty, in boys, these changes are brought about by the sex hormone testosterone, right. Now these changes in the characters which are brought about by the hormone testosterone is known as secondary sexual characters in males, right. And then this is maintained throughout life. Now these characters, once they are developed, the secondary sexual characters, with the help of the sex hormones, it remains there throughout the life of the individual. Similarly, in girls, puberty is induced by the hormones estrogen and progesterone. These are the two hormones that are responsible to bring about, to develop secondary sexual characters in females. So the hormones bring about development or maturation of the secondary sexual characters in females. Puberty changes a girl into a woman, and now the girl can bear children, right. These are the major changes that takes place. Now what are these changes? What are when I say the secondary sexual characters, you may think about what are these secondary sexual characters, right. So let's talk about the characters as the change found in the secondary at the time of puberty in boys and girls. Now if we look at the characteristics in changes in boys, we see that Number one, we see hair growth on the face, chest, armpits, pubic regions, on the legs and arms, right? Now, if we talk about the girls, again here we see hair growth in the armpits and pubic region, right? So there's a little change here. Then in boys, breasts do not enlarge, whereas in girls, enlargement of breast takes place with the increase of mammary glands. Then third point, there's no enlargement and fat deposition around the pelvic region in boys, whereas enlargement of the pelvic region is the hip region, right? Pelvic region and fat deposition in the hip and thigh region of girl is found. If we talk about the voice, in girls the voice becomes more sweet, whereas in boys the larynx, because the larynx is the voice box, because the larynx enlarges, the voice in the boys it becomes more, more harsher, more coarser, or the voice deepens, or we can say that the voice becomes more heavy. Then in boys the body becomes more muscular, the shoulders broaden, whereas in girls no such changes takes place. In fact, I would say that of course the shape in the girls also changes a little as compared to the boys. Then penis, scrotum, prostate gland gets enlarged and it gets activated. Now all these are parts of the reproductive system in boys, and we'll talk about that in detail. So fallopian tubes, uterus and vagina gets enlarged in females. Again, these are part of the female reproductive system, and we will talk about these two systems in detail later. Then no periodic changes in boys occur in the lining of sex organs, whereas the lining of the uterus is an organ in the female reproductive system in which the babies develop, right? So that undergoes regular changes, right? So initiating menstruation and ovulation, that is the production of the ova. Then the last point, in boys we see these changes are brought about by the male sex hormone, that is testosterone, which is again produced in the testes, whereas in females these changes, secondary sexual characters changes, are brought about by the female sex hormone estrogen and progesterone, which are produced in the ovary, right? So again here I would repeat that the gametes are produced in the ovary, the sex hormones are in the gonads, testes in males and ovaries in females. In the same way, the sex hormones are also secreted by the gonads, that is testes in males and ovaries in females. Now, in addition to the above changes, puberty introduces attitudinal changes. There's a change in the attitude found in both boys and girls. So they become more conscious. You become more conscious about your existence, how important you are. You become more conscious about your body, yourself, your presence, right? So you become more aware of your own body, and you become more aware of those around you also, right? Okay, now again we see here that when we talk about sexual maturity, this is a slow process. The changes that take place at puberty are slow. Now, it is not that you've attained the age of 13 years or 12 years and all of a sudden you get to see all the puberty changes in you. No. The puberty changes also that takes place are slow processes. Slowly you will see the growth of certain things in your body, right? So it's a slow process which may take months to years also. Now these changes do not happen all at the same time in one person, nor do they happen at an exact age. From person to person it differs, right? In some they happen early and quickly, while in others they may happen a little late and maybe a little more slow. Thick hair on the face in boys appear as scattered hair first, few scattered hair. Initially it starts like that, and then you will see that slowly the growth becomes more uniform, and these changes show differences among people. Even there are difference in the pattern of hair growth, shape and size of the genitals. Okay, next is reasons for sexual maturity at this age. Why does sexual maturity take place at a certain particular age, which is known as puberty? Why? because of specialized, the two reasons of puberty changes. Number one is specialized function. All the multicellular organisms, right, need specialized cell types to carry out specialized functions. There's division of labor, see. For example, plants have developed different types of cells and tissues for sexual reproduction. Likewise, humans have developed special germ cells. Germ cells are gametes for the purpose of sexual reproduction, right? What are these germ cells? These germ cells are actually the gametes that we talk about, right? Okay, so then it says here, next is the body growth versus reproductive tissues. It says, as a matter of fact, various resources are required for the general body growth. Now, when a child is born, you see that the child, even you yourself must have seen how from a small baby you've grown to this big, however big you are right now, right? And for this kind of growth you require certain resources. Resources means you require some nutrients, right, for the growth. If you do not get these nutrients, then what happens? You become malnutrition and proper growth does not take place, right? So again, a lot of resources is required because the body is still growing. And then what happens? When all this is attained, then sexual maturity takes place, right? Because then for sexual maturity also certain resources are required. So then these are being transferred to those areas, that is the gonads, which further help in the sexual maturity to attain adulthood. When an individual is reaching adulthood, the rate of the general body growth begins to slow down. You will see that the general body growth becomes a little lesser. You may become a little thinner. I mean, it's different in boys and girls, right? So that the general body growth, basically it slows down, and the resources, why it slows down is because the resources which were initially being used by the general body is now shifted to the gonads, right? So then the resources are being used by the gonads to initiate the maturation of the reproductive tissues, right? So this period during adolescence again is known as puberty. Now, how do all changes link to reproductive process? There are various changes that link to the reproductive process involve transfer of germ cells, that is transfer of the gametes, and the requirement of special organs. Transfer of the germ cells during sexual mode of reproduction, the male and female germ cells of the gametes from two different individuals, they need to fuse together. That is how fertilization takes place. Fusion of the gametes is must, right? So for the fusion of the gametes, the gametes must come together to fuse, and it can happen by either of the following methods. That means external release of the germ cells, that is external fertilization, which we have already studied in some of the organisms. If you remember studying about frogs, from the body of the individuals, as in the flowering plants and frogs, there is in these the germ cells are released outside the body and fertilization takes place outside the body. Then there is internal transfer of germ cells, where the germ cells of the gametes are transferred to inside the body. Now this takes place by physical contact between two individuals. The animals who participate in mating undergo many pubertal changes, and this is known as internal fertilization. So we'll just see the differences between external and internal fertilization. The first is occurrence. External occurs outside the body of the female, mostly in water, like in frogs. Internal occurs inside the body of the female. Then the release of gametes. In external, both male and female gametes are released in water, whereas in internal fertilization, male gametes are released in the genital tract of the female. Then movement of gametes. In external fertilization, male gametes swim to reach the female gametes, whereas in internal fertilization, the male gametes ascend the genital tract to reach the female gametes. Ascend means they move up to reach the genital tract. Development. Embryo in external fertilization develops outside the female body and remains unprotected. Whereas if we talk about internal fertilization, then the embryo develops inside the body of the female in the uterus, like I told you just now, and remains protected in the uterus. Examples you can just go through. Then it says here that there is a special organ that is required for the transfer of the germ cells or the gametes. So organ for the actual transfer of germ cells or the sperms into the body of female individual is an erectile organ known as penis in males. So when we were talking about accessory organs, or we talked about the difference between the primary reproductive organs and the secondary reproductive organs. So here the penis, since it is assisting in the process of reproduction, it is known as the secondary sexual organ. Similarly, organs which carry the baby inside the body, that is the uterus. Organs to feed the young ones after birth is the breast. Now we come to the male reproductive system. The male reproductive system in human beings is associated with the formation and transfer of sperms to the ovum. Now it consists of the following part: the primary reproductive organ, which is the testes in the male. Now if you look at this diagram of the male reproductive system, this region is the testes in males, right? So, and this is the primary reproductive organ of males. Primary reproductive organ of males, right? The testes. Then we come to the duct, that means the accessory reproductive part, right? Small tube-like structures which includes the vas efferens, epididymis and vas deferens. And then the accessory reproductive organs, these include the penis, urethra, the glands, which help in the which helps in the smooth movement of the sperms. They are the seminal vesicles, a pair of Cowper's gland and the prostate gland. Now if we look at the diagram of the testes, here you see this is the diagram of the testes, and if we look at the parts over here of the testes, we see a pair of testes. It lies in a loose fold of skin, right? Now if we move on to this diagram here, we will see here that the outermost lining, this outermost lining would be that loose bag that we talk about, loose fold of skin, right? Now this loose fold of skin is known as the scrotal sac. That is the scrotal sac, and this hangs down from the abdomen at the base of the penis, right? Now if we again move back, here you see the scrotal sac is clearly shown over here, labeled as scrotum, and it hangs down from the abdomen. Abdomen is the lower stomach region, and at the base of the penis you can see this is the region, this is the penis region, and here this is found, right? The temperature of the scrotum remains about 1 to 3 degree less than the body temperature, right? So the temperature of the scrotum, here the temperature is 1 to 3 degree lesser than the body temperature, because that is the optimum temperature which is required for the development of the sperms, right? Other than that, we see that each testis is composed of tightly coiled seminiferous tubules. Now if you look at this diagram here, you will see that there are some locules present over here, some areas, room like areas, see, each part is all divided here like this. These are the locules, right? These divided parts, these are the locules. Now inside this you will see this yellow coiled, like highly coiled structure. This is highly coiled. Now these highly coiled structures are known as the seminiferous tubules, right? They are embedded in connective tissue. Now if you see the surrounding of this seminiferous tubule, this grey colored part, right? This grey part, blackish grey part, this is the connective tissue that is present. So that is why we say that the seminiferous tubule here, the yellow coiled part, is it's a coiled tube like structure. It lies in the embedded in the connective tissue. You studied in class 9 what are the connective tissues, right? Then again here we see there are certain cells that are present in the connective tissue between the seminiferous tubules. These are the Leydig cells, and these Leydig cells, they secrete the male hormone testosterone. Seminiferous tubules produce sperm, right? Now one question that can be asked in the exam is, which part of the male reproductive system produces sperm? So it is the seminiferous tubule specifically which produces sperms, right? Seminiferous tubules produces sperms, right? Of course, if testes is an option and seminiferous tubule is not given, then you will mark testes. But if seminiferous tubule is given over there, then it is the seminiferous tubules that produce sperms, right? Other than that, now some nourishment is required by these sperms which are formed, and so there are certain cells known as Sertoli cells that nourish the developing sperm, right? So that is also found in the connective tissue. Now we come to the associated ducts. If we talk about the associated ducts, we see, let's see this diagram now. We see vasa efferentia or vas efferens, right? Vasa efferentia or vas efferens. Now this what is this vasa efferentia or vas efferens? These are 12 to 14 fine tubules that carry sperm into the epididymis. Now I am just enlarging this. You will see here the seminiferous tubules, and you will see that each seminiferous tubules are marking with green. Now that part is vas efferentia. This part here, this seminiferous tubule is all ending into one single small tubule. Now this tubule, one single small tubule into which the seminiferous tubules end, is known as vas efferens. Right, these are the vas efferens, right? So there are 12 to 14 fine tubules. These carry sperm into the epididymis. Now if you look at this, all these tubules, the vas efferens, they are all connecting over here, and they are forming a kind of a network, right? Now this network is known as rete testes, right? Now it's labeled here the rete testes. So that's the network. That means the vas efferens, the 12 to 14 tubules, they get together to form a network which is known as rete testes. Now this rete testes, it again emerges out. You will see here, it is all emerging out, right? Emerging out into again a coiled tubule which is known as epididymis. Now if we look at this epididymis, right, the epididymis is all you will see it is all located or found on the testes region, on top of this, right? So the part that is more broader and on top, this is known as the caput epididymis or the head of the epididymis, right? The lower part here, this is known as the corpus or the body of the epididymis, and the end region of the epididymis, it is known as the cauda or the tail region of the epididymis. So we have the head of the epididymis, we have the body of the epididymis. Head is the caput, body is the corpus, and tail is the chorda, right? So chorda. So that's about the epididymis, right? So each epididymis is about, now let's see the length. Epididymis is about 4 to 6 meters long tube, highly coiled. We don't even, I mean, look at the way it is coiled that you won't even come to know how long it is. So it is around 4 to 6 meters in length, right? Highly coiled and lies closely attached, very closely attached to the testes of its site in the scrotal sac, right? So it's inside the scrotal sac also. Then comes the vas deferentia or the vas deferens. Now what is this vas deferens? A thick walled tube. Now it is this tube only that later on becomes more thicker, right? So this thick walled tube is written here as ductus deferens, and this is vas deferens, the thick tube. This is vas deferens, right? It travels from the scrotum to the body, joins by the seminal vesicle. The vas deferens, along with the seminal vesicle, it opens into the ejaculatory duct. Now we move back to this diagram here. Here you will see the vas deferens. It comes out. Now this tube is the vas deferens, right? And you can see these small glands that are present over here. See, this vas deferens, if you see, it coils around, loops around the ureter, and then the secretions of the seminal vesicles, this is the gland, are secreted into the vas deferens. What is the vas deferens carrying? It is carrying the sperm, right? So when the sperm moves through the region of seminal vesicles, there are certain secretions that are secreted which helps in the smooth movement and nourishment of the sperms. Further, when it moves, you will see here that there is a gland known as the prostrate gland, right? Then there's a Cowper's gland also present. All these, they secrete certain secretions which makes the movement of the sperm more easy and also provide certain nourishment. Now this the vas deferens, it enters into the penis region, right, into the ejaculatory duct, right. The ejaculatory duct of two sides leads into the urethra. Now this is the urethra region, right, and the junction of the two remains surrounded by the prostrate gland. Here you see it is surrounded by the prostrate gland, and this is the urethra region of the male reproductive system. So if we talk about the male reproductive system, it is also referred to as urinogenital system. Why urinogenital system? Because it is the genital organ also, and the urine also passes out through the same organ. That is why it is the urinogenital system, right? So that's about the male reproductive system and the associated glands. Other than that, let's talk about the accessory reproductive glands that are present. I have discussed already the seminal vesicles, right? It is to store sperms and produce viscous fluid which stimulates uterine contraction to help sperm ascend into the fallopian tube. So the secretions help in that. Then the Cowper's gland, also known as the bulbourethral gland, they're very, very small glands. The bulbourethral gland or the Cowper's gland, they're very tiny gland, and they secrete mucus which lubricates the female passage during copulation. And the prostrate gland, a small duct, prostrate gland pours its secretions into the urethra. Prostrate gland secretes a milky fluid which helps in the mobility of the sperm, right. So basically it provides mobility. All the secretions are also providing mobility to the sperm, providing some nutrition also to the sperm. Other than that, when the sperm happens to reach the female reproductive system, it further helps in the process of the sperms to reach the system, to reach inside to fertilize. Then comes the structure of the sperm. These are the male gametes, and here you can see the structure of the sperm, human sperm. They are tiny bodies, very, very tiny, formed in the seminiferous tubules, and they're formed in large number, right? A sperm contains mainly the genetic material, that is the DNA. It has a long tail. The characteristic beating of the tail helps the sperm move towards the female germ cell or the ovum inside the genital tract. Now if you look at the structure, now the structure of the sperm is asked in the board exams also, right? Now if you see, this region is the head region of the sperm, which is, see, roughly triangular like this, and this top part is known as the acrosome, right? Just below the head region is the middle piece, here this region, and if you look at the middle piece, right, you will find the mitochondria. What is mitochondria? Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Powerhouse of the cell means it provides energy, and when the sperm has to move, it requires a lot of energy. So that is how this mitochondria provides the energy. And of course, in the head region only you will find the nucleus. Right here you see, this is the nucleus. Now the nucleus contains the genetic material, which is the DNA. Right, so only the head region, when it pierces the ovum, the genetic material is transferred. Right? Okay. Then you see, for locomotion, for the movement, for swimming, is found a tail. Right? So there's a whiplash movement of the tail, this side and this side, like that. That is how it moves, and it propels or makes the sperm move ahead. Right? Now we come to the last part, that is the semen. Semen is a mixture of mature sperm. That means the semen contains mature sperms and the secretions of various accessory glands. What were the accessory glands? We talked about the seminal vesicles. We talked about the, other than the seminal vesicles, we talked about the prostrate gland and the Cowper's gland, right? So around 2.5 to 4 ml of semen is ejaculated in each ejaculation, which contains millions of sperm. And semen is a milky, viscous, alkaline fluid, and its alkalinity corrects the acidity of the male urinogenital duct as well as that of the vagina of females. Semen contains fructose, proteins and chemicals, also for the nourishment and motility of the sperms. So with this we've completed the male reproductive system, and in the next class we will talk about the female reproductive system. So that's all for today. Thank you.